where black families actually united more under Jim Crow than they've ever been in history. Now, this is the controversial thinking of Byron Donalds, and he's already received enough backlash about it from the black community. But Jasmine Crockett had her own statement to make about this controversial statement made by this political figure. Now, because of these divided opinions from political figures in the black community, certain palm coloreds are stepping in and taking advantage, and also claiming that actually under Jim Crow things were much better for blacks than they are now. But you tell me, do you think there is some truth to Byron's statement? Because he's actually coming out and trying to support his claim by saying that the family system and marriage system was actually more united than it's ever been. So is there some truth to that statement? Now, of course, that's an outrageous remark to make, but there are some black individuals that also do think so. Like in another video we covered, a certain black man was supporting Byron Donalds. Like, just imagine that. Let's take a moment and look at these videos and hear out what people had to say concerning this discussion.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing? So Queen Representative Jasmine Crockett went onto the Breakfast Club on yesterday for a real quick interview. And during that interview, she had a few things to say about Byron Donalds. Let's take a listen, shall we?
When you look at the fact that this president has been on the picket lines and making sure that those in Detroit and any other place where they are manufacturing cars, and he is fighting with them to make sure that they get higher wages. When you look at the fact that, my granny, she has sugar diabetes, as they used to call it, right? Making sure that people can actually afford their life-saving medications. I can tell you that not everything in this world has been fixed, but I can tell you that there's one team that is fighting every single day to make this world better, and there's another team that literally wants to delete our humanity and look at us and act as if we are not. My governor pardoned a police officer who was convicted by a jury of his peers for literally being a Black Lives Matter activist.
Say his name, Governor Greg Abbott.
Governor Greg Abbott. And here's the problem. That happened maybe 2 weeks after the whole dog situation with Kristi Noem. Now, the whole country went crazy about her killing her dog. I keep trying to remind people that this country still values the life of a dog over our lives. And if we continue to put people into office, and that even means some of our skinfolk who definitely are not our kinfolk, as Byron Donalds, who are going to continue to say that, the fact that you sitting around talking about life was better under Jim Crow, is this because you don't understand history? Or literally it's because you married a white woman and so you think that whitewashed you. I'm not really sure, what it is.
Well, but you couldn't even be married to a white woman under Jim
Correct. And it took Joy to call him out.
Right.
So I'm like, bruh, what are you talking about? What are you saying? He just out here, I feel like they give him his talking points and he's like, yes, massa, I got it.
Ooh.
And it's not enough. So neither party is perfect. I will agree with that. So people that take issue with both parties, I completely understand. There is no perfection that actually resides on this earth, but there is a party that at least is striving for a more perfect union, and that's the Democrats.
Well, Jasmine, gotta go. I know people like you give me hope in the future of the Democratic Party. What's the website for the bleach blonde?
The clapbackcollection.com. Yes. The clapbackcollection.com. That's right. Get your shirt.
Now, to be clear, Byron Donalds is making the media rounds on all of the black programming that he can get onto. He's been on Abby Phillips. He's been on Joy Reid. He's been on Reverend Al Sharpton. One black news media outlet that he has not been on would be Roland Martin. I wonder why that is. I think us black people know why that is, but yeah, I see you, Byron Donalds. You went on to Abby Phillips and you tried to overtalk her. You went over to Joyanne Reid and you tried to overtalk her. You went on to Reverend Al Sharpton and you tried to overtalk him. But he's been in this game far too long and he got your ass together. As did Abby Phillips and Joyanne Reid. And I know one person that you will not overtalk and you will not disrespect or try to disrespect. And that is the Roland Martin. You can't even think that you're going to overtalk him and be disrespectful towards him. You can't even think it, because he gonna stop that before it makes it out of your mouth. Anywho, he's been on all of these different black programming news media outlets, right? And everything that he said on each one of those news outlets was, I did not say that black people were doing better under Jim Crow. That's not what I said. People are gaslighting. People are taking my comments out of context. People are spinning my words. People are flat out lying. The Democrats are using this as a political talking point. See, the MAGA nuts may listen to that and side with Byron Donalds, but the rest of us who understand that words can lead to an insinuation of something without specifically coming out and saying that something, what Byron Donalds did was Byron Donalds insinuated that because the black family was stronger and the black marriage was stronger under Jim Crow, black people were better off. It was the insinuation. And I also need Byron Donalds to learn intent versus impact. You see, the message that Byron Donalds intended to deliver with his words, once it hit us, the impact was totally different. And that's because he was being disingenuous with the intent of his message. Yeah, he likes to tell us that he is one of the greatest communicators in Congress. Beware. Shout out to Jasmine Crockett for figuring out a way in order to make money off of her 6 B's. Bleach blonde, bad built, butch body. Because somebody mentioned down in my comments that she should sell t-shirts or put it on a mug or something like that. And I was like, she can't do that in Congress. But what she did was, I guess she partnered with a t-shirt making company, right? And she's selling these t-shirts, but it turns into a donation to her campaign. So she's not personally profiting off of selling these t-shirts, but her campaign funds will increase. Shout out to Jasmine Crockett, because you know I got me a t-shirt. I can't wait to get it. And I put a little extra on that donation as well. Go ahead, Jasmine. We need to have more representatives calling out these MAGA nuts, to allow them to have free reign to do the harassment and bullying and all of the chaos without facing repercussions. That needs to stop.
Well, let's get this straight. Joe Biden and the Democrat Party are throwing stones at Congressman Byron Donalds for daring to speak some uncomfortable truths. Sure, his words might sting a bit, but let's not pretend like there isn't a grain of truth in what he said. Black families were indeed stronger during the Jim Crow era, and not because they were living some utopian dream, but because they had no other choice. During that dark period of American history, black families were forced to rely on each other for support and survival due to the systemic race and discrimination they faced. This led to stronger family bonds and a sense of community, as they had to work together to overcome the challenges they faced. And let's not forget.
Now let me preface this video by saying, TT, that this is for educational purposes only. Now don't y'all just love it when the colonizer / oppressor try to tell us about the black experience? I mean, and the only reason why he agrees with Byron Bobblehead Donalds, y'all, is because he's a black man that uplifts and upholds white supremacy. But the minute I saw this video, I knew what was coming next.
It was Democratic policies that birthed the abhorrent era, championing segregation laws, maintaining racial hierarchy, and turning a blind eye to the atrocities committed against Black Americans. Black families during Jim Crow weren't just stronger by choice. They were forced into survival mode by a system designed to oppress them. So before Joe Biden and his cronies start wagging their fingers at Byron Donalds, maybe they should take a long, hard look in the mirror. Maybe they should reckon with the fact that it was their party, their policies that created the hellish nightmare of Jim Crow in the first place. And
Told y'all, different day, but the same playbook. Now that is correct that the Southern Democrats were the ones that introduced the Jim Crow laws. But somehow or another, y'all always forget to mention the Great Switch. You remember the Great Party Switch when the Democrats and the Republicans basically switched ideologies. Now it's true, they was Democrats, but that was in name only, because everything that they stood for, including their policies at that time prior to the Great Switch, was damn near Republican, aka the White Hooded Party. The fact that you are even on here insinuating and agreeing with Byron Bobblehead Donalds is insulting within itself. And saying that Jim Crow was good for Black families is literally like saying Black folks benefited from slavery. Taken from Ron to Satan 101 history book. Reality check politics. I think you should just sit this one out. And I don't know about y'all, but he just reeks of I have one Black friend. And ask yourself, what rights have white men in this country ever been stripped of? Oh, don't worry. Take all the time you need. You see, reality check politics, you need to check your own reality. And those would be facts on facts on facts on top of facts.
It is very concerning that there will always be some individuals that have some controversial things to say and a way of thinking concerning the hardships that people have gone through, especially in a time when nobody is experiencing similar hardships compared to what other people went through, right? Everybody is going to have their own opinions to say about it and even just sideline those people's pain. Now, let's take a moment and look at Jasmine Crockett and what she said and what certain individuals think. So, radio host Charlamagne the God stopped by Comedy Central's The Daily Show on Wednesday to lament the Democrats don't fight back harder against Republicans. However, he did find one Democrat he liked in Rep. Jasmine Crockett, whom he proceeded to welcome to throw the Uncle Tom smear at Rep. Byron Donalds and Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Charlamagne was also displeased with what he considered to be the idea that Republicans like Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene sound real when they campaign or give interviews, because they occasionally swear while Democrats give long and boring typical politician speeches. To Charlamagne's rescue came Crockett, who recently got into a shouting competition with Greene during a recent housing hearing. Now, we did look at this where this Tyler Greene figure, a palm-colored woman that was throwing shade at Jasmine Crockett's dressing in real fashion. Hoping to duplicate that moment, Charlamagne declared, and good news for Democrats, they have someone who can help them with their messaging. When I heard Republican Congressman Byron Donalds say some wild BS about Black families and Jim Crow, I knew just who to call. Transitioning to a previously recorded interview, Charlamagne asked, "Good to see you." Now, a colleague from across the aisle, Byron Donalds, recently said that Black families were better under Jim Crow, which was a period of forced racial segregation. What would you say to that? At this point, it should be noted that Donalds never said Black families were better because of Jim Crow. He also never said that the Jim Crow era was better for Blacks. This is what this report says. Regardless, Crockett ranted, "Yeah, I would say, is it okay for an Uncle Tom, Uncle Ruckus, or maybe under this and Uncle Clarence to try to tell us what it is to be Black in America, considering the fact that he is married to a palm-colored woman? Kind of like his Uncle Clarence. That would not have been allowed. So yeah, he probably needs to go back to the history books if they keep trying to take out of our classrooms." Now, let's go back to Byron's own statement and see what he said. Rep. Byron Donalds, a prominent supporter of President Donald Trump, recently tried to draw black voters to Trump's side, but a comparison he made involving the Jim Crow era drew criticism for Democrats. So he made a comparison. At a Tuesday event in Philadelphia, Donald compared today's black culture with that of the Jim Crow era, where black people in the South were subjugated to multiple forms of state-sponsored discrimination. Jim Crow laws were enacted over several decades following the end of post-Civil War Reconstruction in the late 19th century and formally ended with passage of Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act in the mid-1960s. Now for what he said. You see, during Jim Crow, the black family was together, Donald said in a recording published by the Philadelphia Inquirer. During Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative. Black people have always been conservative-minded, but more black people voted conservatively. And then the Department of Health, Education and Welfare. Lyndon Johnson, you go down that road, and now we are where we are. Now, before we proceed, you tell me whether you find Donald's statement here controversial, because he says that the family was united. Not that it was better for black people, but just that it was united. Let's continue. Leading Democrats criticized Donald's statement as ionizing the Jim Crow era. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries of the New York called out Donald's on the House floor, saying his comparison was a factually inaccurate statement that black folks were better off Jim Crow. That's an outlandish, outrageous, and out-of-pocket observation. The Congressional Black Caucus, which consists of House Democrats, demanded that Donalds apologize to black Americans for misrepresenting one of the darkest chapters in our history for his own political gain. Now, Vice President Kamala Harris weighed in May 10th, saying it's sadly yet another example of somebody out of Florida trying to erase or rewrite our true history, meaning black Americans' true history, referring to a controversy over a proposed rewrite of some black history standards for middle schools in the state. I went to Florida last July to call out what they were trying to do to replace our history with lies. And apparently, there's a never-ending flow of that coming out of that state. Now, in conclusion, Donalds defended his comments on MSNBC, saying he was not being nostalgic about Jim Crow, but was trying to make the narrow point about black marriage rates and a stronger conservative identity. During the Jim Crow period, he said, the marriage rates of black Americans were significantly higher than any other time since then in American history, and that since then they have plummeted. Some Democratic characterizations of Donald's remarks were overbroad, but experts told PolitiFact that Donald's remarks about black American families and conservative identity were thorny in their own right. Donald's office did not respond to an inquiry for this article. Now, you tell me what you think in the comment section regarding today's discussion. And what Mr. Donald said and what Jasmine Crockett said. Was she right in saying what she said on that podcast? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Signing off for now.